Hello and welcome to Reroll. My name is Angus Morrison and I have been lucky enough to get my hands on a review copy of Shadowrun Returns. Shadowrun started life as a tabletop RPG back in 1989, blending a dark cyberpunk world with newly reawakened magic. Think dwarves, elves and orks hacking into the Matrix in the distant future, and you're about halfway there. Shadowrun spawned a number of video games of varying success, and Shadowrun Returns is the result of a phenomenally successful KickStarter campaign by head of Harebrained Studios and original Shadowrun creator Jordan Weisman. The aim of the Kickstarter was to resurrect the 2D, turn-based and story-driven RPG, an adventure which would allow for the detailed and meaningful character development often confined to the realms of pen and paper, something which few publishers are willing to throw their weight behind. Asking for $400,000, they made a colossal $1.8 million from around 36,000 backers. So I reckon it's fair to say that the demand was there, but my question was how much of Shadowrun Returns was going to be fan service, relying on nostalgia among the game's original following to succeed, or does it stand on its own 2 feet? Does it succeed as a game as well as a tribute, offering as much to the newcomer as to the die-hard fan? Without a shadow of a doubt. Let's start with the aesthetic, because there's a great deal of interest at the moment in applying old techniques through new technology, to see what the 2D landscapes of the 80s and 90s look like drawn in full HD. For another example which has made it through Kickstarter, we can look to Torment, Tides of Numenera. And the results are incredible. The level of detail in each scene is staggering. Objects which serve simply as set dressing, objects which you never interact with or even take cover behind have been picked out with extreme clarity. Everything from wine glasses to deli meats are there for the careful observer. It's hard to believe that the world is 2D, essentially a painting with which your character is convincingly integrated. Lighting has proved to be a real strength here, serving the dual purpose of adding depth to the flat world while recalling a characteristically 80s vision of the future in its colours. Occasionally the backdrop feels restrictive. Being able to perceive so much detail while lacking the precision control to interact with it is a reminder that much of the scenery is there for show, apart from the world which you are able to influence. But it's hard to complain about being spoiled by so much detail, and where the levels tend towards the unconvincing, it serves only to direct attention back towards your character and the story of which you are a central part. Really, this is Shadowrun Returns' greatest achievement. The feeling that you matter, the feeling that despite a large and varied world, your character's actions, your actions, are central. The sensation starts at character creation, in the sprawling list of skills and attributes which are true to their tabletop roots. Charisma, intellect, wisdom, quickness, strength, body, they're all fantasy staples, but rarely are you offered so much choice in perfecting the balance that is right for you. That each one affects your dialogue and interactions with the game's characters gives these attributes a sense of purpose beyond simply augmenting your punches. Completing both combat and non-combat objectives earns you karma to further these skills, honing a character for a world in which what you say can be just as important as the men you shoot. And you will be torn. The decision to opt for one skill over another without knowing what's around the next corner is an agonizing process, but that is the hallmark of a good RPG. Engaging, non-trivial choices which keep you up at night. The sensation is then developed, interestingly enough, by the lack of voice acting. There's a lot of reading to do, great walls of text to plough through, but it's all to the game's benefit. Because while Harebrained have painted this beautiful world for you, much of the story plays out in your imagination. You bring your own voices to the game, you imagine the responses playing out, and while your choice often boils down to one of 3 dialogue options, which might all lead to the same response, each is well written and affecting, a conversation you will willingly pursue. The story itself is harvested from anything and everything, from Victorian horror through to dystopian visions of a corporate future, and back to the fantasy staples of Tolkien. And while it lacks for originality, this variation is central in cementing your sense of place in the world. It's rare to see a game be all things to all people, but given how much is brought to Shadowrun by your own imagination, it just might succeed. Between dialogue, there's also bouts of problem solving, light detective work which sees you piece together a solution from remembered conversation and leads in the environment. It's nothing wildly taxing, but it's refreshing to figure something out yourself without being led by the hand. The game feels more like a dungeon master than unwavering dictator, creating the world and specifying its challenges, and then retreating from the limelight. It respects the player's intellect, and though it might just be an illusion of freedom, it's hard to tell from the real thing. And let's not forget about the level editor included with each copy of Shadowrun Returns. The game itself clocks in at around 12 hours, longer if you take the time to sift through every available scrap of information, but the ability to play Dungeon Master yourself and then share your creations with others is an incredibly exciting prospect. Combat mercifully goes far beyond its tabletop ancestors. In fact, in terms of pace, it improves upon many a turn-based game. Switching between free movement in the absence of enemies and dropping into turn-based combat in a fight is something which might have benefited titles such as XCOM Enemy Unknown, and it sacrifices none of the tactical complexity. The impact of cover and positioning seems to be slightly less than in similar titles, and your party can survive a good few hits while out in the open, but this mobility is tempered by the need to carefully manage your ammunition and cooldowns. Deciding whether to empty a clip on fully automatic and risk missing, or to wait another turn and risk dying, brings the same sense of urgency held by the dialogue into the combat. Of course, a turn-based game is forever concerned with simulating the interplay of skill and luck, and inevitably situations result where you miss a 99% accurate punch while standing in an adjacent square. But while this can be frustrating, in the context of Shadowrun, it's just yet another cog in the great pen and paper simulation, as if you're sitting around a table with friends and your D20 has just catastrophically failed you. For anyone who's played a tabletop RPG, be it Shadowrun or something else, the feeling is unmistakable, perfectly recreated and updated for a 21st century video game. I could nitpick, of course, easily. The controls could certainly flow more smoothly. At present there's a slight delay between inputting one move and entering a second, and there's a distinct lack of feedback informing you that an action has been successfully performed. The build I played was also rather prone to crashing, which highlighted some background checkpointing issues. The checkpoints themselves were fairly generous and well spaced, but it wasn't fantastic at letting you know that your progress had been saved. Additional touches like a high resolution character model for the inventory screen would have been nice too. But as I said, nitpicking. With the exception of the crashes, which I hope are confined to my machine, the rough edges are eclipsed by a game which is deep and engaging. Whether you spent the 90s hunched over character sheets or are yet unfamiliar with the franchise, Shadowrun Returns is not to be missed. In every capacity, it is a true, character-driven RPG. As ever, my name has been Angus Morrison. If you would share this video, I would be forever in your debt, especially as YouTube seems to have trouble notifying subscribers. Like if you enjoyed what you saw, and I will see you next time.